everybody, I'm Tommy, and this is The Lifeboat. Glad that you are here. This is kind of by popular demand. Since the 50 Cent documentary came out on Sean Diddy Combs, Sean Combs, The Reckoning. It's a 4-part series that is available on, Netflix. Since that documentary has come out, a lot of people have reached out and asked me to do Diddy content. And I'll be honest, one of the reasons that I haven't been doing it is there's just not a lot to talk about. And the other night when I was doing a live on something else, someone asked me about the guy's future. So I thought this is probably worth revisiting. There are an awful lot of really awful things that are about to happen to Diddy. However, most of the ones that you hear people reporting on are bullshit stuff. They're just simply not true. Sandy Wendy, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. They're just not true. And there's a lot of that going around because this is one hell of a payday. I've said many times in the past that this was the biggest moneymaker that I ever did on the boat. The amount of money that I made talking about Sean Combs was huge. I also got a comment the other night that I thought was funny. Someone said, it's really funny that you covered Diddy, seeing as you're probably not a hip hop fan of any kind. Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that 70s show either. I cover true crime, and Sean Combs is far less of an entertainer. He's far less of a music producer than he is a gangster. Perhaps a paper gangster, as he was described in the 50 Cent documentary by several people. A guy that wanted to be a street tough, but ended up using business to push people around. And that's sort of the legacy of Sean Combs, in my humble opinion. What we see on Diddy, hold on one second, people. This could be family. I always check because that's just how I roll. Let's see here. Sorry, let me just respond to this. I'm terribly sorry. I really am, but I kind of got to do it. It could be fam, you see. All right. So where is Diddy's future right now? Where does this lie? And I'll tell you pretty simply where this ends up. Sean Diddy Combs is losing the war of attrition in a really fast way. If you happen to have caught the documentary, you probably saw an interview with Joy Dickerson-Neal. This is a woman that has filed a lawsuit against Diddy, accusing him of sexual assault, of rape, and of drugging her to do it. This is one of the first cases that we have heard of with Sean Combs, and I mean chronologically. We heard a lot of people tell the same story. But this is the first time we heard a story of, I was drugged, I was knocked out, I was abused, and then the video was played at parties. He was a guy that allegedly liked to assault women, videotape it, and then brag about it, which is, to me, absolutely diabolical. It's just the nastiest thing that you can wrap your brain around someone doing. But this is exactly what he is accused of. And if you saw her interview on the 50 Cent documentary, Diddy, The Reckoning, this is a woman who is beyond believable. It's not just someone that comes out, because I've said this many times. How do you prove that something happened to you in 1991? The way you prove it is if your mother typed a letter. This is before computers. You can see this was done on a typewriter. Hello, Kristen Melinda. I'm glad you're here. They typed out a letter to Diddy's mother and father, not realizing, obviously, that Diddy only had a mother at that point. But a letter that documents everything that her daughter told her. This woman also kept an unbelievable journal, right? Dated times, all of that stuff. So there is a very long paper trail that documents what happened to her in 1991. And as she talks about this, she weeps in a way that, I'm telling you what, if it's not real, it's the greatest fake I've ever seen in my life. Puka Vista, how are you? I'm glad you're here. I happen to believe 100% that everything she is saying is the truth. And I have a feeling that 12 jurors are going to feel the exact same thing. This is going to be a case, and this one's coming up quick. This is going to be a case, and by quick, I mean 2026, like most of the rest of them. Hello, Natalie. This is going to be one of those cases that if you're the Diddy legal team, you're going to look at this one and go, damn, we're probably not going to win this, right? Because all you're going to have Diddy say is, I never met this woman. I was never alone with this woman. He said he met her, but he was never alone with her and that this never happened. This is, of course, like they say in all 100 of these, this is a money grab. This is just a way to take advantage of a wealthy black man. That's Diddy's stance, that this is all just people trying to get rich off of him because of how successful he has been. The problem with that is going to be that her story is backed up by a journal perfectly. She said, I ran into him at such and such a location. I called him out about this. He got on his knees and swore that he didn't do this to me. If all of those things weren't true, they wouldn't be in a journal. Who writes a journal in the early 90s, right? Because you think that in 2025, you're going to have a lawsuit that's going to come up. This is just one of 100 plus pending lawsuits against Diddy. When the documentary came out, they said 77 were proceeding through the court. That it's higher than that. The number is right at 100. Some AI platforms have it at 103. Some have it as low as 96. Anyway, you shake it. Let's call it 100 for easy math. Hey, D. Canuck, you are almost on time. Actually, you're pretty much on time. I'm just sort of getting rolling, so you're here at the right time. But that is just one of the lawsuits that is pending. The Aubrey O'Day one is another one. Hello, Wendy R. That is fascinating in a legal sense of the word, because Aubrey O'Day does not recall what happened to her. But somebody reached out to her with an affidavit to say, I walked in on you being assaulted. This all is going to start to become a theme, that this is a guy that used drugs to knock people out and film it. And as you watch the documentary that was put together by 50 Cent's team over at G Unit, you're going to see people who come on and say, this was his MO. These were people that were ridiculously close to him. Kirk Burroughs is another lawsuit that's moving forward. You have to realize that when people talk about Sean Combs being a billionaire, Sean Combs was called a billionaire when Sean John was in business, when he had the deal with Diageo, the liquor company that was making Ciroc, when all of these deals were in place, and when the bad boy empire, so to speak, still made a lot of money. There were artists, they were still developing people, they were still producing music. That business is defunct. It's not that it doesn't make money. It does. It makes over $100,000 a month, but only in royalties. They're not producing anything. The bad boy studios in New York, Daddy's House, all that garbage is boarded up, right? There is no longer a bad boy. However, there is somebody that is suing for 25% of bad boy, and it is another individual that kept ludicrous, right, kind of documentation. Not because he hoped to sue in the future, but because, according to the documentary, when that first $10 million influx that Sean Combs got, hey, Katie, stop that. Cat. When he first got that money from Clive Davis, the first $10 million, Diddy took $1.5 million for himself, and then he gave $1.5 million to Burroughs and said to him, this is for you. Use it any way you want, but keep the business running. That's a quote, right? So he was paranoid that he was going to spend this money somewhere he shouldn't. He kept meticulous records of everything that he did. He also claims that he is also assaulted. If any one of these things goes to trial, a jury could give Joy Dickerson Neal 50 to 100 million. They could give her 200 million. And if they believe Diddy is a billionaire, sending a $200 million judgment is the kind of thing that they do. They want to hurt people with that kind of money who feel like they can do whatever they want. Do you remember the over $100 million judgment for someone burning themselves with hot coffee out of a cup that says warning hot coffee? If they believe that you are just irresponsible or you don't care about the feelings of other people, juries love to take large amounts of money from the air quotes rich. Sean Combs is hemorrhaging money at a rate you can't imagine. I did a show on this. He has all kinds of kids. If you take just what it costs to upkeep the two houses that he has, right? One of them was at just the taxes alone was about $24,000 a month or some such ridiculous number. This guy is hemorrhaging cash with nothing coming in. There are things going out. He has legal teams. If you think there's one set of lawyers that are handling all of these sexual assault and rape allegations that are against him in civil court, that's simply not a possibility. You could not handle that kind of volume over the course of a year. He has to hire multiple legal teams. Those legal teams have to hire multiple private investigators. They have to hire tons of paralegals. This research has to get done. The Aubrey O'Day thing is creepy and scary. I don't know if that's a good thing she doesn't remember. Well, here's the thing. So allegedly, the drugs that were being used are date rape drugs. By their definition, they wipe out memory. Now, the ones that you hear about the most would be GHB, right? Gamma hydroxybutyric acid. And the other would be Rohypnol, right? Or Rufinol, some people call it. It's fluinitrazepam. Wow, that was fast, Johnny Scoble. Fluinitrazepam. It's in the same family as all benzodiazepines, but they used to estimate that one was about 10 to 12 10 milligram diazepam or Valium. We're talking about a crap load, right, of a drug that can make you forget everything that is going on. So if by some chance everything she is telling us is the truth, then she's not going to remember what happened to her. This is the kind of chemical that can make somebody, hello, Whitby Island hippie girl. This is the kind of chemical that will make you lose 8 to 10 hours. In fact, there are countries where if a woman or even a man endured a gang rape, something horrific to their psyche, they would take them in. This is not the North American way to do it, but it was done in places in South America and some other places in Europe and Asia as well, where they would bring the person in, have them do a full deposition on camera, tell them everything they remember while it was fresh, and then wipe the hell out of their memory. Now, I don't know. From a psychiatric standpoint, I'm not smart enough to tell if that's a really bad idea or a really good idea. But this is the kind of substance that literally will wipe out somebody's ability to remember anything. So, yeah, fact, says Johnny Scoville. Aubrio Day very well probably does not remember what happened. If you watch the documentary and you hear exactly what she describes, it's terrifying because the description isn't from her. The description is from someone else. And the person describing this event said she looked out of it. Well, that usually is how the people look. This came up in the Danny Masterson case. Again, funny comment. You don't like hip hop. I didn't like that 70s show either. Danny Masterson was another guy that used GHB, gamma I can't say it today. I don't know what it is, Johnny. Can't say it. How could you say GHB? Gamma hydroxybutyric acid, GHB. Once ecstasy started getting stomped out as a club drug, GHB started to become far more popular. Hello, Laura Lou. It is a terrifying drug, right? It really is. Any of these things that wipe out memory. I've told the story on other Lifeboat episodes years ago, but I went to a guy's 29th birthday party, and I had 3 or 4 drinks, and I ate a roofie. And he had a professional videographer team in there filming the entire thing. And about 6 weeks later, they delivered the video cassette to him. And he came over and said, "You got to watch this, man. You were awesome." I have zero memory of anything I watched on that tape. I was a bartender for a while. I got behind the bar, started serving people drinks. I made a screaming ass of myself. When the cops showed up, I walked outside to talk to them. I said, "I got this." Walked outside. I have no memory of any of it. I've seen the tape probably 50 times and nothing comes back. It is a terrifying drug. It's a beautiful thing that it has been basically eliminated in most places on this planet. Huffman LaRoche was the company that manufactured Rohypnol. There really could not be a medical purpose for that substance. It's just crazy. Yes, her look while reading the account of her abuse is terrifying, isn't it? It's so unbelievable because she's reading something that happened to her that she has no memory of. There's going to be a decent amount of that that's going to take place throughout these 100 lawsuits. But let's just say for the sake of argument that Joy Dickerson Neal takes this all the way to the box. If Diddy's attorneys are stupid enough to think that they can win that case, all they're going to have is his word, right, of Diddy saying, I was never alone with her. And then you're going to have her word. Diddy's is going to be just him saying, I was never alone with her. No one else can ever back that up except Diddy, right, and the victim, the survivor. However, she has a ton of stuff to back this up. She has a letter from a mother that said that this happened, that she told her about it. She was screaming on a typewriter. She was screaming in the middle of the night. The mother went in and she said, I was thinking about Diddy. Apparently, the video was shown to 60 people. There are a lot of people within Diddy's inner circle that will probably end up subpoenaed. People that you saw, if you watched the Netflix documentary, who said he did this. He did it because of a drug dealer in Harlem. I believe they called him Alpo, Johnny Scobo. Alpo. What's that lead you to believe? He was probably a heroin salesman. If you saw that the video and you heard the guy's nickname was Alpo, dog food is a pretty common nickname for heroin. I was about to say, what's the medical use of that drug? Laura Lou, I honestly can't think of one. Look, we think of the top of the food chain in the benzodiazepine family in the United States of America or in most other civilized places as a drug called clonazepam. The name brand on that is Klonopin. It is also a drug that will wipe you out. It'll take away your memory. It is a very, very strong drug. Rohypnol was so much stronger than that, right? The roofies, they never called them that when we were kids. They called them roaches because on one side of the drug, it had Roche, right? As in Huffman LaRoche, and it looked like Roche. So they called them roaches. Sometimes they were called disco biscuits, but I never heard anyone say roofie until years later when Geraldo Rivera sort of did a big expose on this. He went and walked across a footbridge into a town in Mexico, walked up to a guy that said, hey, you're looking for prescriptions? A doctor of sorts. And then he went in and bought the stuff and walked back across the footbridge. GHB is used for narcolepsy. And you know something? I said once on this show that I didn't believe it was that prescriptions were written for it anymore for anything. I was wrong about that. By the way, I was wrong yesterday too. It was 500 kilos. I think I said 500 tons. Seemed to piss a few people off. 500 kilos. People, I do this without a net. You know what I mean? I do about 15 hours a week on this. I do it without a script. I memorize the stuff and I go, and every once in a while I will misspeak. Happy New Year to you too, Ruth Anna. Glad you are here. Yeah, narcolepsy. So if you really struggle a great deal with sleep disorders, gamma hydroxybutyric acid will knock you the hell out. It absolutely will render you unconscious in a way that very few other medications will do. I don't know if you've ever taken Ambien or you've taken Lunesta or you've taken any other kind of drugs that they give for people to go to sleep. GHB will knock you the hell out. Unfortunately, especially if you add even this much alcohol to any of that stuff, there's an old adage in the benzo family and in most strong drugs that have a narcotic effect on the body. They will say 1 + 1 = 3. So if you took one Valium and you had one drink, the effect of those is going to be about 3 times what it would, not doubling it. You know what? There's no better way to put that. If you had a microphone, I would insist you drop it. What an evil monster that Diddy person is. There is no amount of money that can make his victims whole again. You're absolutely right. And we know from statistics that about half of the people who are victimized in that particular fashion, especially women, do not ever talk about it. They don't come forward. It just becomes something that they tuck away and put in a closet that ruins their life. I mean, it's always going to be something that is in the back of your mind messing with you. So how many victims, have come forward and talked about this and how many didn't? What I thought was fascinating too in that documentary was to hear Capricorn, the woman who was sort of the precursor to KK, right? Christina Karam. Prior to that was a woman that used to work at Motown and a couple of other labels. And she talked about how this is ruining her life, that she isn't guilty of any of the things that she is accused of. Coke addictions use Rohypnol to deal with depression, as I recall. I'm not sure. I'm not going to argue that may have been tried by people somewhere. This is a debilitating drug. One Rohypnol doesn't leave you capable of walking around and talking to people very well. And God forbid you put any booze on it. Not only are you not going to be particularly crisp, but you're not going to remember anything of the conversation. If they used Rohypnol to deal with depression from addictions, I would be really surprised by that. It is a heavy benzo. I don't know if you were here earlier when I talked about it, but it's the equivalent of eating between 10 and 12, depending on which source you agree with. Valiums, right? Not the 5s, the 10s. And I don't think there are too many doctors out there that would say, I know
people couldn't get it. They would eat 10 strips.
That's exactly right. When it was difficult, there was a time that the state of Texas was inundated with these things. If you went into a nightclub, they came in 10 strips, a little foil pop pack, right? Blister pack that had 10 pills in it. And you would walk into nightclubs or concerts and they would be a half an inch thick of empty 10 strips laying on the floor. And at the time, the whole, hey, you can knock people out with this kind of creepy thing. It was more about people eating them themselves.
That never occurred
to me. Nobody heard about it for years. Most people had quit doing it because it was terrifying. But you could also build up a tolerance to that stuff that would blow your mind. I talked about this once on the show before too, but I used to have an apartment in Houston, Texas, and I used to rent my garage. I had a 2-bay garage that I paid extra for to have, had a garage door opener and all that. And I used to rent it to a group of people that would pull a car in and then take the car apart. The car would have recently come across the Mexican border, and it would have tons and tons of different drugs packed into the quarter panels and all of that stuff. And whatever hit the ground, I got to keep, and they would give me about $400 for using the garage, which at the time seemed like a really good deal. But one of the drivers once, the most clean-cut looking Latin American cat you've ever seen, walked in, and he was like this. And I said, "You all right, bro?" And he goes, You don't have any roaches?" I said, "I do, actually." And he goes, Can I buy a box?" And I was like, "Can I just give you a couple?" He's like, "I really need a box." I watched him pop 10 out, put it in his hand and eat it. And I thought, good God, you're going to die. Hey, Happy New Year to you too. I filmed last night on the Malecone at about 2:00 in the morning, and you would not believe it. It was a ghost town. There was not a human being. There was not a car. You would not have known that simply a couple of days earlier, it looked like Mardi Gras. Happy New Year, Tommy and everyone. Have you heard about the possibility of jail time to former Prince Andrew? British people are increasing pressure over King Charles. Here's the thing on that. I would imagine the charges would have to come from the United States of America. And that gets to be a dicey situation. The Brits may find things over there to charge him with. I'm not super up on all of the things he's accused of inside of Great Britain. I am very up on all of the things he's accused of inside the United States of America. I would say that there is a slim to none chance of the royal family not fighting America really hard on that. And then there would be the matter of extraditing him, which again, he is defunct or not. He is the son of a queen, and I don't know. I would honestly love to see it happen. I also would love to know exactly what type of suicide, right? That the girl whose life he ruined actually had. We're going on almost 9 months, and we still don't know what took her life. I don't buy that story. I don't. She had waited a very long time for people to believe in her, and now once that people were, and she got a huge settlement. At that point, she thinks this would be a good time to take myself out right before my book comes out. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm a recovering drug addict and an ex-convict, but that doesn't pass the smell test to me. Thank you, Wendy R. What a nice thing to say. Wendy says, your stories and experiences are very enlightening and educational. Thank you for sharing them with us. Absolutely. You know what? I reached a point in my life where I realized that I either pissed away the first half of my life, or I could do something with those stories that may keep people from doing some of the same stupid stuff that I did. But Virginia Giuffre's death needs to be explained a whole lot better to the world. I struggle to believe that it takes 9 months to do an autopsy, or as they call it, I think over there, a post-mortem. Why would it take 9 months to tell us in what form of taking her life did that happen? Right? To me, that just absolutely stinks. I wonder if the Andrew story is really being pursued by the U.S. legal system. As of right now, I would say it is not. Is it true they found her with a bag over her head? Wendy R., as of right now, they're not saying how she passed. There is nothing that I could find anywhere. In all the research I did, they said that toxicology and an autopsy report is pending, but they have not released anything about how she took her life, which I find distressing. That doesn't mean that there are not videos out there that say she shot herself, hung herself, took pills, all of those things. Just like there are videos that are going to be made within the hour I'm live with you right now, there will be 5 or more Diddy videos that go up that will tell you today was the worst news that ever happened to Sean Combs. Because those kind of thumbnails grab people's attention. People come in, they start looking at the content, and hopefully you get them to go down your Diddy rabbit hole or whatever the hell the goal is. But the truth of the matter with Diddy is this. There are a crap load of really ugly civil lawsuits that are coming up on Diddy. Now, the statutes of limitations are up on almost all of this, right? So chances are there aren't going to be criminal charges coming out of most of these cases. However, there are cases that fall within the statute of limitation, and there is an opportunity with each one of those cases for it to turn into a situation like happened with Cassie Ventura. I think it would have been lovely if they could have prosecuted him for domestic violence. I think that would have made a lot more sense. I do think that the RICO thing was solid. I think the jury was paid off. It's an opinion. It's only an opinion, but we've only seen 2 jurors that were interviewed, and the man in the documentary was patently an idiot. His take on this was, hey, if a guy does something like this to a woman, obviously she's going to leave, right? That was why they, according to him, that's why they ruled against all of the stuff having to do with Cassie. If Cassie didn't want to be there, she'd have left. I mean, these are people that understand about this much about domestic violence, right? How come all women just don't leave? Because they get into situations where the pressure to leave the fear of leaving is more terrifying than the fear of staying. This is a guy that, by all accounts, is willing to kill people, right? We heard all kinds of interviews in that documentary, like when he went over to Kid Cudi and he grabbed Capricorn and said, come on, we're going to go kill him. I mean, that alone, right? We know, what is Natanya Rubens, the dopest nerd. If you've never gone over and checked her out, she has a YouTube channel. She's also a beautiful human being. I've had the pleasure of meeting her, doing some shows with her. She's a beautiful human being. She is the woman that got shot in the face by Sean Combs. She was staring down the barrel of the gun in his hand when it shot her in the face. He has been dodging bullets his entire life. Could we get some prayers for Natalie Strasser, please? A friend that's been in the hospital since before Thanksgiving apparently was drinking a bottle of booze a day. You know what? Thank God they're in the hospital. If you're drinking 32 shots of booze a day, right, a fifth, you probably need hospitalization. And thank God, Natalie, that your friend is there and not in a morgue, because that kind of alcohol abuse kills people. It's a very, very strong drug. Well, I think all of their money was a factor. It's hard to start over when you're broke. It's also hard to start over when your career is in the music business. And the guy that you're sleeping with, who's forcing you to sleep with other people and beating the piss out of you. You know, this guy's take was, this is just a relationship. Might not be one we understand. Yeah, no, it's not. This is an abusive relationship where somebody is getting punched in the face by a man. She didn't want to leave, but she was afraid leaving would either kill her or her career. That's not consent. It's not a loving relationship that we don't understand. That is a stupid jury. And no jury can be that dumb. Not all of them, right? There had to be at least one person on that juror that went, come on, this is typical in domestic violence stuff. Women have a very difficult time leaving. And in some cases, men do. There are men who are in abusive relationships who don't leave as well. But if you throw in the dynamic, like Sickley says, of a crap load of money, right? This guy paid all of her bills. This guy flew her all over the world. And he also held the strings to her 10-album deal. They had signed a 10-record deal with her. If she doesn't keep doing what he wants her to do, number one, he's going to abuse her physically in a bad way. And number two, he kills her career. And the career doesn't just end at Bad Boy. Where do you go after he decides he's going to ruin you? You think other labels are going to pick you up? Because inside of that little industry, here's a thought. I don't know how many people watch the documentary, but here's a thought that jumped off the page at me. If you look at the pictures of Sean Combs with Andre Harrell was the original male mentor to Diddy. He owned Uptown Records. Diddy became an AR rep for him. Then he became the vice president of A&R. It looks like Diddy's a boy toy. And we know that Diddy's door swings at least in 2 directions. Hell, it might go up and down. Who freaking knows, right? This guy really has some sexual predilections that are unusual, right? To say the least. But it looked like he was a boy toy there, didn't it? Yes, Wendy says yes. That's the way it looked to me. Now, Clive Davis has come out of the closet. Clive Davis says he's fond of men, that he's now living a gay lifestyle, or was, 5 or 10 years ago when he came out of the closet about this. And a lot of people have said that Diddy was a boy toy for Clive Davis. Did it occur to anyone that that's just one level up from exactly what Diddy was doing? Right? These are huge producers with massive amounts of talent, one stealing the boy toy from the other. Just like Diddy was trying to steal girls from Suge Knight, or he was trying to steal, Kim Porter from Al B. Shore. Diddy always looked at something that someone else had and said, I'm going to take this. It almost looks like Diddy realized the situation he was in when Uptown Records and Andre Harrell fired him. So he went over to Clive Davis and said, hey, I really need a contract. I've got a lot of great artists, and I am willing to give you mouth hugs or anything else you would like, because I don't have a soul at this point, and there's nothing I wouldn't do to get rich and famous. Sadly, that really is how it looks. He is. I didn't know that about Clive Davis. Absolutely, Wendy R. Clive came out and said years ago that he finally has sort of accepted, he says, his bisexuality, and maybe that's the truth, who knows. But that he finally accepted that and that he's been exploring that aspect of his life. 2025, 2015, 2020 are really different than the 60s, where I would imagine that Clive kept up a very particular kind of image for the world to see, because at that point, homosexuality was looked at very differently than it is today. It's far more accepted today than it was back then, and that's probably a good thing. But this was a time now where he can kind of be himself, right? And he can be himself with somebody like Sean Combs, who, hey, if you don't think Sean Combs would get on his knees just as quickly as he'd force someone else to, I don't think there's anything on this earth that Sean Combs wouldn't do to push his agenda a little bit forward. I think it's fascinating, though, that he's sitting in prison. He's blowing money, right? Like you can't imagine, trying to change all of our minds. If you watch the documentary, he talks about it right in the beginning. He said, this is more, right, than winning a case. This is more than this trial. This is my reputation. This is my life. Yeah, well, your life's over, man. Diddy is just that guy that gets away with it. I know people like this, no matter what. They slither their way out of every crime they commit. Multiple times he should have served serious charges. 7 that I can count. 7 times he should have absolutely been doing time. But that said, very often, if it's just you did something to me, I can go in and say, I don't want to press any charges. And if the state goes, all right, that's fine with me, knowing that there's a $500,000 payoff, right? Then they go, okay, fine. Like that Russian influencer. What's his name? Vitaly. Is it Vitaly? Vitaly. On mushrooms, on his own admission, 30 grams of mushrooms. He went out into the street, found a female jogger, and beat the bark off of her. I mean, not sexually. He just decided to beat a woman up and left her bruised and battered. If it was you, if it was me, if it was anyone else on earth, they'd be doing a crap load of time. And you know what? They should be. But he paid the woman off an astounding amount of money that is, of course, we never know, right? They don't allow those numbers to get out. But he bought his way out of that. And the rich do that. But the case like Natanya Rubin's being shot in the nightclub, that whole situation is a little bit different, right? Somebody went to prison for that. It just wasn't the person that should have. By the way, I don't know how much you followed that case, but they didn't say Diddy didn't have a gun. They conceded that he fired his gun in the nightclub, but he didn't need to go to prison for that. Turned 44 yesterday, 8 years clean. Can we get a 3? Because I think that's a great number. How about a Trey for 8 years clean? That is the coolest thing I've heard in a long time. Man, that's cool. Congratulations, Jordan. I love that. Yeah, it is disgusting, Wendy R. And by all accounts, he allegedly said to Cassie Ventura that they bought that jury. Yeah, see, this is kind of the point I was getting at, Sickly. All of those people that keep dodging bullets eventually catch one right here. Vitaly, by all accounts, is wasting away in a prison. His weight is down. He's having arrhythmia problems with his heart. And he has blown his fortune trying to buy his way into citizenship in another country, and no one wants him. I mean, he has left a legacy of being, his mom's been hustled for a lot of money and a lot of cryptocurrency for people that said, get me this, and I'll get him a passport in, Czechoslovakia or wherever. And none of those things came true, but they have been hemorrhaging money. Diddy's doing the same thing. There's a big story everyone's running with. 3 prominent law professors have just come out to say that the sentence was too much. And the reason the sentence is too much is because the judge was sentencing him for things that he was found not guilty of, as much as he was sentencing him for the violations of the Mann Act. I got news for you. That's completely legal. A federal judge can listen to every single thing in a case where there are 5 charges. 4 can be thrown out, and the judge can go, I think the jury's an idiot, and I'm going to take that into account, and I'm going to give more time based on the fact that I watched a video of him beating up Cassie Ventura. There's nothing wrong with that.
Super rare?
No, it's not. It's not super rare at all. Now, if he were to go above the guidelines, if you were to go above the guidelines, now we have a problem. But here's Diddy's problem. There are going to be 3 numbers that you deal with at sentencing in the federal system. One of them is going to be your attorney. Your attorney is going to say, I think he should get 8 minutes in jail and he should go home today with time served. Also, give him a bag of weed and $100, right? I mean, they're going to come out with the dumbest thing you've ever heard. Like, he didn't do anything, man. You should be high-fiving him. Tell him he's innocent. Give him a plaque and give him that key to the city back. But your legal team, as the defense, is going to say, here's what we want for our client. Then the prosecution is going to go, no. Now, the Mann Act says it's going to be between this and between that. We'll come down in the middle. And they usually either go to the high end or the middle. It's rare that they go to the low end. But they came within the guidelines, right? Then you get the third one. And the third one is done by the Department of Probation. The Department of Probation sends in your probation officer. Now, you don't realize for, 50 months in Diddy's case that that's actually your probation officer. You think some person's just coming in to do an interview on you. But that person has talked to your friends. That person has researched things, watched videos, looked at your high school records. Like this person has researched the dog crap out of you. They're going to then make a recommendation. So the judge says, what does the prosecution recommend? Boom. They say 60 months, whatever. What does probation recommend? 60 to 80 months. What does the defense want? A bag of weed, $100 bill, and a bus ticket home. Okay. If he comes back below what the other two suggested, then your appeal is dog crap. I promise you. It does happen, Johnny Scoville, where a judge is so pissed off that all of those recommendations are for 60 months. And the judge comes back and goes, you know what? Let's do 80 months. Now that can be an issue. That is something that on appeal, you got a really good shot of at least getting other judges to look at what it is you're saying. But Diddy, he fell within the guidelines. People go, no one should get this kind of time for that. Then why are they the guidelines, right? Then why did his defense team come out the day of the sentencing? I mean, the day of the that he was found not guilty on everything but the Mann Act and say, this is a victory, because they thought they were going to let him walk home with time served. Well, that's not the guidelines. It's not even close to the guidelines, right? So all the appeals and all that, you know what that is? That's Diddy spending crap loads of money. And his legal team knows that you got a better chance of seeing our Lord and Savior in a pair of sunglasses and a tie-dye than this guy getting any traction at all on these. But they're not going to go, hey, save your money, bro. Honestly, you just got to do your number, because they're not going to give you any love on this. But three prominent, and I don't know how prominent they are, but that's what they're calling it. Three prominent college professors of law have come out to say that this is an unjust ruling. Does anyone think I'm a cynic to say that maybe they got a little something for that opinion? Huh? Do you think maybe he got, maybe those people got something, a little bit of cash, maybe an endowment, right? Something. I don't think that they came out of the blue. All three of them got together and just said, hey, let's try to defend the least popular guy in America other than Meghan Markle, right? Who, by the way, had the worst. She was voted like the least likable person for 2025. I was shocked, by the way. Shocked. He is rotting in a Filipino jail, and it doesn't look like he's got any shot of getting out. But I do think Vitali made his bed, or like my grandfather used to say, you buttered your bread, now lay in it. Yes, won't be an issue for his appeal. It was a lenient sentence. It came in under the guidelines, right? They're mere guidelines. And they are mere guidelines. There was a time where you could not sentence above or below the guidelines. And then there was a very famous case in the feds called Booker. And the case was Booker v. versus the United States of America, where they challenged the guidelines to say the judge ought to have the ability to look at each case individually and say, this one doesn't fit the guidelines. After Booker, all of that changed. That now a judge can go below, he can go above, he can do anything he wants. And that's probably a good thing if you think about it, especially if you sit through a case and you are the most educated law individual in the room, in theory, and you listen to all of the evidence and go, my God, he's guilty of RICO. Like, this is just glaring. And then you hear the jury come back and go, not guilty. And allegedly, this guy's got priors for buying a jury, right? This kind of makes people scratch their head a little bit. But in that nightclub shooting, Diddy walks free, and a guy named Shine Barrows goes to prison for 10 years. By the way, Johnny Scoville comes out of prison, gets a record deal instantly. for a ton of money. And guess what? Hadn't made a record. How about that? He went home to his home country where he's now a politician. God bless him. I hope he has a long and prosperous life. But he just did the rip. He did 10 years for somebody. And I'll tell you something, folks, you couldn't write me a check that I got to fill in to go do 10 years in prison for somebody else's crime. If you said, go ahead, you can fill in the number, I wouldn't go do 10 years for somebody else's crime. It was lousy doing it for crimes I was guilty of. I can't imagine doing it for somebody else's crime. That's got to be tough. Now, Shine Barrow did pull the gun out of his pocket, and he did shoot, but so did Diddy. And one of them got to hold a press conference on the front steps of the courthouse talking about how great God was and how he knew that this was going to happen. And, you know, he's finally been vindicated. There are 100 more attempts at taking Sean Combs out. He is allegedly trying to sue Netflix. God bless him. Let that happen, right? Because that will just suck him dry even more. He's unloading real estate. He's renting out that jet, right? Which is great. But he has to make huge amounts of the money that comes in off of that jet, gets paid back out for the upkeep on it, the hangar that it sits in, the crew that has to be on it every time it takes off. It's not as rosy as everyone thinks. And his mother, allegedly, who all of the assets of Bad Boy were put into her name. 75% was supposed to be Diddy's. He put it in her name. And the Burroughs was supposed to get the other 25%. He's suing for that 25%. He also alleges deviant sexual behavior at the hands of Sean Combs. Any one of these 100 cases could catch the wrong jury and they could go, give him $75 million. That $1 billion he's got, I'd be dead ass shocked if he had anything over, say, 250, 300 million tops left over. And if that sounds like a ton of money, you have to realize how much is going out every month for all of his spoiled children and their unbelievable car collections. I did a show, Wendy R., where I broke down his finances. You can go back and look at it. It says something like, can Diddy survive this? Watch how fast Kristen Melinda puts that up. She's a beast of a wrench. But I did a show on this. Don't watch it now, for the love of God, but go back and watch it later. And I break down where he is at financially in terms of how much is going out. Like just the amount of automobiles that this guy has, right? All of the payments on all of the properties. And you go, well, he owns those. He does. But the taxes on them are more than I would pay for some properties, right? And he's got several like that. And then you have upkeep. Do you realize if you have a home that's 15,000 square feet or something in that neck of the woods, and you've got it in a very affluent part of town, you have to maintain the grounds of that, whether you live there or not. You have to have people taking care of the 6 or 7, right, industrial size air conditioning units that are on the roof of these places, right? And all of it is hemorrhaging money. He is just leaking cash as fast as he can with nothing coming in except renting a jet, which I promise you isn't going to pay for the prep schools or the colleges that his kids are going to. Now, he has his mom, who is going to have a legal case she has to pay for. She can't pay for it. Diddy will be paying for that. Janice hasn't worked in forever, right? Her money is his money. He's also got not one, but 2 sons, allegedly, who are also facing their own civil cases. And if you think this is going to stop, wait until the first one gets a really good payout. His options are this: settle or go all the way to the box. If you go all the way to the box, you're grabbing the dice and going like this, that the jury doesn't clean you out in one fell swoop. You're done. They think you're a billionaire. They think you're this absolute tycoon and you've got jets and all that. Pay this woman $250 million for what she's been living with since 1991. Or pay this woman $110 million or $120 million. They can say, give her $500 million. He cannot survive all of the lawsuits that are coming. And if you think he's going to get out of jail and go back to doing what he did, I put up on the screen on one of my other shows the terms of his release. One of them is he can't manage anyone. They're not going to let him be in a position where he is above someone and can force a mouth hug, right? Or the person bending over on a couch to get a record deal, because allegedly he's got priors for that, right? So they don't want any of that going on. He isn't going to be able to go back to doing what he was doing. You think he's going to go on stage and sell tickets? Honest to God. I mean, there'll be some voyeurs. There'll be some people that like watching a dumpster fire who will, but not enough to cover the tour, man. Go ask J-Lo. right? And J-Lo isn't accused of anything that Diddy's accused of, except maybe sneaking a gun into a nightclub, right? And hanging out with this loser. But Beyonce's having a problem with ticket sales. If you're associated with Sean Combs, it has hurt your music career. What do you think it's going to do to Sean Combs, right? He said in court at sentencing, Johnny Scoville, I got a speaking engagement in Florida booked for next week. Hubris, right? He thought the judge might let him out just in time for him to go down to Florida for a speaking engagement. Who the hell's going to book this dude for a speaking engagement? For real. And we're in year one of Diddy documentaries. And I don't mean all the other ones that came out before that. I'm talking about G Unit. I'm talking about Mr. Curtis, right? Curtis Jackson, 50 Cent. 50 Cent, I don't think is done. That Netflix documentary killed it. Killed it. Yeah, his ego is massive. If he gets out of prison, and his ego is a good point, Wendy R. If he gets out of prison and decides, I can go do a music tour, what are you going to do? Put your homes up? Right? I don't think you're going to have your homes by the time these 100 cases are done. But let's say you did. You're going to put your homes up? You're going to bankroll this yourself? Because I'll tell you something else that happened. And this is something worth thinking about. People like Sean Combs have insurance policies against lawsuits. Famous people do this. They have insurance, right, that will pay off lawsuits. And you pay incredible premiums for this. Insurance companies can drop you. And if you get clusters of women that are accusing you of the same thing, no one wants to touch this dude. What financial institution wants to be even whispered about as, hey, yeah, Chase Bank is the one that put up the money for the Diddy tour, or he borrowed that money from Wells Fargo. Yeah, that's good for your business. He would have to find a private citizen to bankroll that. He would also have to find one with an IQ of about 77 to believe it would be a good idea for the Diddy comeback tour, right? And I promise you, 50 Cent isn't done with him. I think he's a bit salty about that Daphne being a sex worker for him thing after having his kid. Can't say I blame him. It's a little frustrating. And out of his own mouth, he said that he's a little fruity. Johnny Scoville. That's what he said. He said he's a fruit pop. That Puffy had come on to him telling him he wanted to take him shopping and all of these things. Allegedly, the guy came on to everybody. And he liked to film people and then show those films to others. This is what is being alleged. Now, of course, he's denied all of this. He has said that all of these people are just going after money. But correct me if I'm wrong, because I got a smart audience here. Didn't he say that about Cassie too? Right? Never put hands on her. He never did any of that. This is a money grab. And then that unfortunate video got leaked to the press. Well, Joy Dickerson-Neal has unfortunate receipts out the wazoo, right? She started writing about what he did to her in 1991. She told people, she talked about it. There is fruity. That's what he says. He's a little fruity. There has been all kinds of documentation. And this is what juries like to see. Because if a person says, I was assaulted in 1991, it was the most traumatic thing that ever happened to me, ever. Now, I've not done anything about it, right? I never told anybody. I never wrote it down. I never went to a doctor. I never called the police. I never did any of that. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. But now you've got her story, his story, and it's a he said, she said. With Joy Dickerson, that ain't what we're looking at. Joy Dickerson-Neal's case is completely different. There is so much to back up that this happened in 91. Her mom's letter, all of her diary entries, one of which said, I just confronted Sean Combs on what he did. Doesn't make a lot of sense that all of that had been made up. Now, if he has to settle this case, what do you reckon that's going to run him to settle this? If he has to settle this case, well, he kind of already set precedents, didn't he? He set precedents with Cassie Ventura a bit, didn't he? And 30 million, I think, is the number that gets bantied around a lot. How many $30 million settlements is it going to take to ruin him? Because if he goes all the way to the box on this, the whole world's going to hear everything about this case. And from a legal standpoint, you got to be really worried that that is going to taint your opportunity to do well in the 99 plus other cases that are pending. Can you see where this is really a shit show for Sean Combs? Forget all of the stuff that people are telling you about. Forget all of the crazy things that people are claiming is happening in this guy's life. His threat is going broke. That is the biggest thing he has to worry about, is going tits up, because currently he has to take care of a crap load of kids who live unbelievably extravagant lifestyles. These kids are used to renting yachts that cost $350,000 a week. Despite what has been put in the press in all kinds of places, Diddy does not own a boat. He doesn't. He might own a small one. He sure as hell does not own a yacht, but he rents them a lot. A lot. 350 grand a week. He's got kids that drive really expensive cars. He has kids that go to clubs and does these with $100 bills, right? And bottle service and all that. They're fighting over who's going to get to play with dad's money while dad's away. And there are other lawsuits coming toward the family in general. He's going to just have to keep putting out money and putting out money and putting out money without much chance of bringing any back in. For real, I guess he could write a book. Hey, I did it. Right? Here's what really happened with all of the people that I was, that I assaulted. I mean, OJ kind of made money on that. They took all the cash from OJ's book and gave it to the victims. But here's another thing. It is being alleged that his sons are making a documentary on the Zeus network. Now, it is also alleged that he is a part of this. You cannot profit from your crimes while incarcerated. Right? It's called this. Yeah, absolutely. You can when you get out. You can write a book about what you did when you get out and make all kinds of profit on it. You can go on a book tour. You can do public speaking gigs. But while you are incarcerated, it's called the Son of Sam law. While you're incarcerated, you cannot make money off of your crime. So you can't just go to prison and release a book while you're in there to get paid. Right now, there are guys who are doing life sentences who will do private books. Like they will write a book and they'll have it sold on Amazon or whatever. But to sign a book deal or a movie deal or any of those things while you are incarcerated violates the Son of Sam law. I just don't see how he will survive this. Wendy R., he cannot survive this. Honest to God, he cannot. The only thing that would save Sean Combs is if he could go out and do a massively successful tour, right? Because he can't start a record label. He can't resurrect Bad Boy Records. And if he tries to, like if he says, well, this person's going to run it and this person's going to be A&R, if he gets caught in any kind of a situation where he is managing anyone or talking to anybody about their careers, that is going to be a violation of the terms of his release. Let me tell you how that works in the feds. So he has a 5-year tail. That means that for 5 years after you get out of prison, you're on probation. During that probation, you got to live under the thumb of somebody else because technically you're still part of the Bureau of Prisons. You're still an inmate. In the eyes of the prison, you're an inmate until they get you off paper. So if he screws that up, here's what they do. Hey, Roberta, they throw his ass back in jail. They'll give him a violation term. Let's say the violation term is a year or 2 years. When he gets out, he doesn't have 3 more years of paper to do. They start the 5 back over. So it is very highly possible to take that 5-year probation and turn it into 20 years of going back and forth, out of prison, out of prison, out of prison. In a state facility, about the 3rd time you do that, they'll say he's not probation material. They'll give him a longer sentence, right, a longer period of time incarcerated, and saying we're just going to kill his paper. In order for that to happen in the feds, you literally got to have about 7 or 8, 9 chances. And I've only heard one person ever in real life that said, hey, they just killed the guy's paper because he couldn't do probation. Normally they go, I don't care. Go back to jail. Here's 2 more years in jail. And when you get out, you start probation again. Here's 2 more years in jail. When you get out, you start probation again. He got to jail at Fort Dix and started drinking. Right? He hadn't even been there a week or 2. That shows that maybe his drug problem, his drug-seeking behavior probably isn't under control yet. I'm not mad at him. I did a lot of dope in prison before I got sober. But I'm just saying, that whole, this is the first time I've been sober in 25 years shit, no one's buying that. So he's going to have drug tests when he's out, and they're drug tests that you cannot fake. People had so much fun with me. When I started the Lifeboat, I was still on paper, right? And people would go, oh, he's using. Man, you have a call-in system with a color. You call every morning. If your color comes up, you got a window this big to get down there and take a specimen cup and fill it with urine. They're going to then take a little eyedropper, a pipette. They do watch you fill it, Johnny Scoville. To make sure you're not using a Whizzinator or any such things, they make you drop your pants like you're a kid, right? So your pants are around your ankles, your junk's hanging out. And where I did it, there was a mirror on 2 walls. So they're literally just, if you have stage fright, you're in deep trouble. It's But they take a pipette, they remove some of the urine, and they put it into a little computerized device that tells you the specific gravity of the urine. So if you got that bright idea that every single drug addict has had at one time or another, where they say, I'm just going to drink 2 gallons of water, Johnny Scoville. Because what that will do is it will flood my kidneys and my liver so bad that it can't take anything else in, and I'll just be peeing out straight water. That will work. Not in the feds. If you don't have enough specific gravity, meaning solids that are being broken down through the liver and excreted out through urine, then they just go, sorry, this sample's no good. They also test for adulterants. So if you're buying Zydot or any of these over-the-counter things that are supposed to clean your pee, good luck. Let me know how that works out. Bleach, lemon juice, all of the urban legends about how you're going to pass a test. This is a 32-panel test. They test for specific gravity. And if there is a hint of anything weird, they send it off, have it done with that gas chromatograph. They cook the urine, capture the gas, and test that. And you ain't getting around that one. Whizzinator. A Whizzinator is a prosthetic. Prosthetic? I don't know why it sounds so wrong. It's a fake penis, right? Usually rubber. It has a bladder that is hooked up. Some people wear it under an armpit to keep it warm. Some of them have a warmer that is built into it. But it is a device that makes it look like you got junk. So you can pull it out of your fly, and it's going to let urine just flow into the cup. It's how people try to beat drug tests. But every time somebody successfully does something, the feds find out about it and find a new way to make sure you don't do it again. Right? They are vicious with their drug tests. And I do mean vicious. And in most places, if you fail one, right, they're going to throw you in jail for 14 days up to a month to get your attention. Then they're going to let you back out and say, tell me what you need to get sober. I'll give them credit. They absolutely will say to you, how come you're failing? What can we do to help you? How about if we send you to more drug meetings? Maybe that would help. But normally what they want is you're going to have to take anywhere between 1 to 3 classes a week where you have to show up. It's a group session. Most everybody in there is a federal inmate. Some state inmates might be in there. But you sit in a group therapy session and you talk about drugs for an hour 3 times a week. On top of that, they're going to want a meeting a day for your first 90 days. So the expression is 90 meetings in 90 days. So for the first 3 months that cat's out, they're going to expect him to go to NA every day. Every day. That's a really hard sell, man. That's a hard thing to do if you have to make a living. Now, well, Diddy doesn't have to make a living. He's got all of that money. Whether he has all of that money at the end of his time in Fort Dix, we will have to see. Another one that's gaining all kinds of popularity is that, would you believe it, the former ruler of Venezuela is now in the same jail as Diddy. No, he is not. Diddy is at Fort Dix, which is a prison. Now, this guy was sent to MDC Brooklyn, which is where Diddy was, right? That's because if you're going to be prosecuted in that part of New York where Maduro and his wife will be prosecuted, you have to go to MDC Brooklyn, the men's detention center in Brooklyn. No better place than a meeting for an attitude change, according to me. Well, there you go. Look, one of the solutions that I did when I got out of prison, one of the reasons I started the Lifeboat was to stay sober. And if you watch the first couple of years of it, for all intent and purpose, it was like going to a NA meeting more than it was going to a YouTube channel. Yeah, hard to get a job if you have a hour-long appointment every day, although there are virtual meetings nowadays. Yes, there are. But the only time the feds allow virtual meetings was during COVID. For the rest of the time, you had to be there in person. And this is something I do know a pinch about because I got out right at about that time. I can't even imagine Maduro in there. Here's the crazy thing. It was probably harder for Diddy than it was for Maduro. Maduro has at least had to deal with paranoia. Diddy didn't. He had a legal team. A security team. He went wherever the hell he wanted, right? Had a good time. Maduro's kind of had to stay to a couple of different palaces, so to speak, where he was guarded. But Diddy lived like an emperor, right? He said, see that girl? I want her. Oh, she doesn't want me? Get her over here. I'll drug her, allegedly, and then I will assault her and video her, right? There are people who are accusing him of this, and you know what? They sound awfully freaking believable, especially when they have paperwork to document the fact that they've been talking about this since it happened. Will he leave MDC Brooklyn ever or stay there? No, he absolutely will leave there. He is going to be at MDC Brooklyn. This is Maduro. Diddy's already left there. He got sent to Fort Dix. Maduro will stay there until the prosecution is over. Once he is found guilty or not guilty, I assume it will be guilty. If he is found guilty, he will probably be sent to Florence, Colorado, to the administrative detention center out there. They call it ADX. It is it's hell on earth, right? They don't allow you to spend an awful lot of time talking to other people. El Chapo is currently there. This is a place that I've had cellmates that did 7 or 8 years there, and then they got sent to a normal yard. And I had them as cellies, and I'm not being disrespectful, but they all come back not quite right. 7 years of not talking to people can really jack with your head. Now at rec, they can scream to one another. There are things they can do. But if you're Maduro, you're going to be put in a place where you're not even going to be able to talk to people much. In fact, what they do to ensure that doesn't happen is normally the way we get around that as inmates is we'll take all of the strings out of a towel or out of a sheet, right? Just the threads that made it. And then we will spin them in one direction and then the opposite direction to make rope just like they make any other rope. But it's like as thin as dental floss. And then you tie what they call a car onto it. Now that car can be made of all kinds of things, toothpaste tubes filled with wet paper towel or whatever, but enough to get weight so that you can throw that down the tier. Someone else can pull it in. And now you can at least communicate with letters, or they call them kites in prison, where you write a kite, send it to a friend, he sends it back, and you can communicate in some way. At ADX, they have a sally port right in front of your cell. So you have the cell door, then there's like a 4-foot area, and then another door. So it makes it damn near impossible to do any fishing. Yes, the ADX, it is a supermax. However, there are supermaxes and there are supermaxes. When I was incarcerated, Lewisburg, Pennsylvania was a supermax. I did time there. Florence, Colorado has a supermax. Then it has ADX. I did time at the supermax. Supermax in the feds, you have a cellmate, right? You're still going to be in there with somebody. It might be a 23-1, meaning you only get out an hour a day. But it is, you absolutely at least have somebody in the same cell as you. At ADX Florence, although there are units at ADX Florence where you have a cellmate, the vast majority of them, you do not. And if you are in one of those units, they have a television set in your cell, which never happens in the feds, but they have that to keep people at least somewhat from going nuts. And when I was still locked up, you could also buy sugar. Like you could buy a 5-pound bag of sugar at store. Make no mistake, they know you're making booze with that. But what are you going to do? You're not going to get in a fight with anybody else. I think it was sort of an olive branch of sorts, Johnny Scoville. You know what I mean? Give them a little something. They used to also sell orange juice. If you take orange juice and you dump sugar into it and you put a cap that has a little burper, it's like a piece of pen or a piece of straw or whatever, it'll just turn into alcohol, right? It takes anywhere from like 3 to 7 days and you can get loopy on it. And I don't think they're too worried about that if you're in a cell that you never get out of. But who knows if they're still doing it now. I think it's a black and white TV too with limited channels. The guy that I spoke to said his TV was color, but they may have both. I'm not sure. He said he had a color TV and it's basic cable. It's about 14 channels. At least this is what my old cellmate said. And he most assuredly was there. I saw his transfer orders. When someone comes in to be your cellmate, you have to ask for their transfer orders because that will show you whether or not they left the yard in what's called an honorable way. Of course, when you're leaving ADX, I mean, you're at ADX. It's not like you're getting into fights, especially if you have a single cell. If you're in that block, fighting becomes a difficult thing. You beat the piss out of yourself, but not too many other people. Maduro's wife was absolutely arrested. Celia, I believe her name is. And she has been, there's a superseding indictment against her that was filed in 2025 that alleges she was the go-between that set up all of the meetings between narco-terrorists, like gangs, like Farco and those people. She was the go-between, the intermediary between the leaders of those cartels and her husband, which is why she is now being charged as well. But she's definitely she definitely was picked up in the same raid, and she is also being held in New York. It would not be at MDC Brooklyn. That is an all-male facility, but she will be oh, no, you know what? No, it is not. I take that back. There are female floors at MDC. So she may be in the same facility as her husband, although they won't be talking much ever again. They make that very, very difficult for even if you're a husband and wife team that gets arrested. Once you're sent to separate yards, you can apply to write back and forth. But you're not supposed to write a letter to an inmate in another prison. The reason for that is you can say, hey, you know that guy Johnny Scoville that just got transferred there? Well, he left owing me $2,000. Kill him, right? That kind of crap used to happen. So what people do instead is called piggybacking. They will mail it to someone on the street who will take the letter, pull it out of an envelope, stick it in another envelope, and send it back. And that's all fine and dandy, unless you're Maduro or unless you're El Chapo, because they're reading and photocopying every single piece of mail that comes into them. Also, at ADX, you don't get mail. That TV that you have, that's where your mail goes on. They put it on the screen and you read your mail on the screen. So you're not getting Christmas cards. You're not getting cool little things from your kids. None of that is happening. Well, by all accounts, El Chapo is not doing well mentally. Now, that, of course, is his family talking. And what are they going to say? Club fed. He's having a great time in there. They're fighting to try to get him out because of cruel and unusual punishment. So, of course, they're going to say that his mental condition is bad. I've never seen somebody that came out of ADX that wasn't a little off. I'll be honest with you. I did a fairly decent-sized stretch in solitary confinement by most people's standards, right? But a year in solitary is something that most people can handle. Right, at least people that have been incarcerated, most people can do a little bit of solitary confinement, and I did it without a television set. I did it without any of those things. But if you can read books and you can work out, solitary isn't awful. You're alone, and believe it or not, just being able to use a restroom without another man in the room, sometimes that's a beautiful thing, right? Or anything else you want to do in there, Johnny Scott. But this isn't going to be good for Maduro. But back to Diddy real quick before I wrap this up. Diddy's biggest threat has nothing to do with people wanting to kill him in prison or any such crap. Robin Miners, good to see you. His biggest threat, and I promise you this is the truth, is that he's going to go broke. There's just no way the man can sustain 100 civil lawsuits. So far, he has settled one that we know of. He paid $30 million on it. Right? Now, that was a pretty rugged one. But Joy Dickerson Neals is pretty rugged. Aubrey O'Days is pretty rugged. So if you go all the way to the box, you're going to blow $5 or $10 million. What if you blow $10 million and then you find out you got to pay 50? Well, on the bright side, you've only got 99 more to deal with, right? Or 77 or 66 or wherever they're at that number. There are going to be a lot of them that his defense team is just going to have to say, all right, give him $1 million or whatever. But if he had to pay all of them just $1 million, that's $100 million, right? I promise you that's probably in the ballpark of at least 1/3, if not 1/2 of his current net worth. And I've said this before. Who wants to buy the Diddy rape house? Honestly. OJ's house was...
Somebody willing to hit tour.
I don't think you can get away with that. TMZ brought tour buses by one of the properties where all of these things allegedly happened, and they got crucified for it. I don't think a lot of people want to buy a house like that, especially knowing that the first thing you would have to do is completely remodel the entire thing. Because if not, you're walking through, well, Spunk Central, Johnny Scoville. I mean, these are pretty disgusting parties that where body fluids of all kinds had to be cleaned up by professional crews.
In 10,000 years, there'll be DNA.
In 10,000 years, there will still be DNA inside Diddy's places. I mean, somebody wildly, wildly wealthy that wants to live on that street could buy it and tear it down. But these are disgusting homes that are going to have an awful lot of, it's going to have an awful lot of gawkers, onlookers. Who wants to live in a house that people are going to be walking by and looking in? Watching Maduro smile on his perp walk makes me wonder if he has any inkling of what's in store for him. Oh, I would say he does not. I promise you that he does not. The people like him believe that they're just going to skate through their entire life, much like Diddy. That, I'll get out of this. I'll get out of it. I'll tell you what's fascinating to me. Antifa is pissed off that we arrested him. They're screaming for the independence of Venezuela and that they should be allowed to be, that he should be allowed to be returned to his people. He's a fascist. Antifa, right? Just goes to show you what I've said the entire time. These people are mentally retarded and have absolutely no clue what they're protesting about. For real. And if that makes you unhappy, you know where the water cooler is, just down the hall past that. All right, people. He is saving face, Wendy. There's always a little bit of that goes on. He also may have, again, not realized just how ugly this is going to get. I would like to see him walk into court with that smile on his face. He probably did today. He was due in court today for his arraignment. We don't hold people for long periods of time without it. Does the government have any power to take Diddy's money to allow his family to live in the style they've become accustomed to? Well, each case is going to give each of these people, let's say, for example, Joy wins a $20 million settlement. And Diddy goes, I'm just not going to pay her. What they will do is go put a lien on his property. So when that property sells, she gets 20 million off the top before anybody gets paid. And the feds are really, hey, Just Joan, the feds are really good at making sure that that these liens get put into place. They don't like letting people skate. Now, he appeared today, correct, Alicia? Because his first court date could not be March 17th. They would have had to have, Lovejoy, good to see you. They would have had to bring him into court probably today, tomorrow at the latest. Then they would set the next one, which is going to be a hearing. Okay, thank you. Perfect. Yeah, he appeared today, pro forma, right? Even if you showed up today and went, I want to plead guilty, they'd go, oh, no, you can't do that. We'll enter a plea for you today of not guilty. In rare circumstances, you can plead guilty at your arraignment, but it is a hard thing to do, especially in the feds, because they want to make sure you really understand what you're doing. So normally a not guilty plea is always entered on the first day. Now they will have a hearing on March 17th to find out where they are, what kind of stuff they're putting together for discovery. Does he have a legal team in place? Yada, yada, yada. And make no mistake, there will be all kinds of lefties that want to represent this guy for free. If that bums you out, watch and see what happens, because I promise you that will go on, right? There will be people that want to represent this guy just to piss off Trump. They will come out of the woodwork, all kinds of them. It's just kind of how it works every time we do something like this. However, I think he has a very small cell, which fortunately will probably have a television set, which is great for a guy like him. It'll help him a lot learning English so that he can talk with the guys out on the rec yard for that 1 hour a day he's going to spend in a cage, if by some chance he wants to go out there. And he might run into some old friends, right? Maybe he and Chapo can chop it up. All right, people, I will be doing another show later on in the day. Hope to see you there. Thank you for coming by and spending some time with me. I'm telling you, this is the boat between now and the next time that we get together. Don't believe any of the crap that people put out about Sean Combs, man. It's an industry and a business. And don't believe anything you hear about Tommy Scoville either. Now, Johnny Scoville, I'm kidding. All right, we'll see you on the next one, people. I'm Tommy. This is The Boat. God bless.